This is too loud! Check your vest! Follow the seating chart!
Ma'am, this isn't an HOA.
I demand compliance!
You counting now!
I thought the biggest risk on that rafting trip was the rapids, until one woman tried to enforce HOA rules on a river she didn't own. I showed up at the launch just after sunrise, that weird quiet hour when the river looks calm but everyone knows it's about to get loud. The parking area sat right outside a clean, manicured neighborhood with matching mailboxes and a big stone sign, the kind that screams HOA before you even read it. Our commercial rafting group was already milling around the trailers, guides unloading rafts and tossing helmets into neat piles. I signed my waiver, clipped on a wristband, and figured this would be a smooth, by-the-book trip. That's when Karen appeared. She didn't introduce herself like a normal guest. She announced herself. Clipboard tucked tight against her chest, laminated badge swinging from her neck, she said she was on the HOA board, and asked which of us were residents versus outside participants. The guides exchanged a quick look but kept it professional. One of them smiled and told her everyone was checked in through the outfitter and covered under the permit. Karen nodded, but her eyes were already scanning license plates like she was on patrol. We hadn't even finished unloading gear when she started commenting on how people were parking. She pointed out a truck that wasn't perfectly straight and said it violated community standards. Someone laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She stepped closer and wrote something down, muttering about documenting behavior. That's when the vibe shifted from pre-trip excitement to low-key awkward. The lead guide called everyone together for the safety briefing, clearly trying to regain control of the scene. He explained the route, the class of rapids, hand signals, and what to do if you fell out. Then he added, calmly and clearly, that once we launched, we'd be on public water governed by state river regulations, not private property rules. He said it like he'd had to say it before. Karen nodded again, but this time she followed it with a tight smile and said, residents are still expected to maintain conduct even off-site. That line landed heavy. Another guide handed out life jackets while Karen kept talking, explaining how noise complaints had been an issue on previous excursions, and how the HOA had the right to address behavior that reflected poorly on the community. A couple of people shifted their feet. One guy asked if this was some kind of HOA-sponsored trip. Karen snapped back that it didn't need to be for her authority to apply. The guide stepped in smoothly and said the trip was operated under a state permit and federal river access laws. His tone stayed chill, but he was drawing a line. Instead of backing off, Karen leaned in. She said she'd already spoken to the HOA president about outings like this, and that enforcement didn't stop at the neighborhood gate. She gestured toward the river like it was just another common area. That's when I noticed one of the guides quietly pull out his phone and send a message, not dramatic, just procedural. We were told to hold tight before loading the rafts. That pause was new. The guides huddled near the trailer while Karen kept pacing, reminding anyone who would listen that violations could still be issued after the fact. Her confidence was wild, like she honestly believed this clipboard gave her jurisdiction over flowing water. The rest of us just stood there, helmets in hand, watching the morning slip by. The river kept moving, same as always, but the launch suddenly felt tense. Nobody said it out loud, but it was obvious something was about to change, and whatever happened next wasn't going to be solved with a waiver or a smile. The lead guide finally stepped forward and took control of the space in a way that made it clear this wasn't a debate anymore. He stood between Karen and the rest of us, feet planted on the gravel, voice calm but firm, the same tone you'd use briefing people before something risky. He said, straight up, that once we left the neighborhood boundary and stepped onto the launch area, HOA rules stopped applying. He didn't raise his voice or get snippy. He just stated it like a fact because it was one. Karen didn't like that shift at all. She tilted her head, tightened her grip on the clipboard, and said she understood what he was trying to say, but residents were still accountable for conduct tied back to the community. The guide didn't argue philosophy or feelings. He pointed toward the permit placard